G's for Gambit. I had to do it that way, guys. A little bit different because we're talking about my favorite Marvel character of all time. We are talking about Remy LeBlanc.
Sir,
Talking about
my
Gambit.
Gambit.
And I'm super excited to see him in the new Wolverine and Deadpool. Anytime I get a chance to talk about my guy Gambit, I'm always excited. So let's get to it. There will be a discussion about Gambit, and it is going to be huge. We're going to get into it. I'm already excited. I got my best Gambit gear on. I've got even my X-Men wallet with Gambit all over it, Jim Lee design. So
Sir.
you can see I love Gambit. I love the X-Men. And I'm all excited and fired up to talk about it. But I'm not the only one on the show, guys. The other guys have lots of stuff to talk about, all important stuff. We're all here the same. I'm just blowing it up about Gambit because as soon as I hear his name, I can't stop talking about it. So I'm going to let my guy Rican take it over and let Lady Laura say her piece as well. Let's get to it, guys.
Yeah, guys, welcome to KOD Comics and Culture Edition with True Danger, Rican Ranger, and our Lady Laura. Basically, we're back another episode. Drew's excited to talk about the X-Men. Last episode, we kind of talked about Deadpool, Wolverine, the MCU a little bit, what's going on with comics and culture. So me and Drew want to keep these coming, keep these discussions going, bring Laura up to speed going on with comics and culture as well. We got her tapping in. She's got a little segment for us. We got some heartstrings with Lady Laura. So without further ado, I give you guys Laura. Laura, say hi to the people. She's gonna come back and fill in some stuff with us. Laura's here with us again. So
Hello.
we love our Lady Laura. Okay, Drew. Now we talked a little bit. I'm gonna set you up, all right? We talked a little bit about Captain America, New World Order. We talked about the Robert Downey cast and some of the possible Iron Man timelines, right?
They did.
Where the MCU's doing. Now, let's try to end when we left off, right? The Robert Downey move. Let's sum up where we left off. What has to happen with the Captain America movie, right? And the ultimate chess move and play move for the Downey cast, right? Mm-hmm. Give me the nucleus of both those moves. To you, why they did it, where they're going, what's happening, your perspective on how Marvel is moving. And then we'll jump into the Gambit and the Blade rumors, which are blowing up right now. They want to see Blade come back. Wesley's performance was my favorite part of the movie.
Oh, he's fantastic.
I'm on the Gambit train. I just think it's a little late. I think if Channing does the training and he gets himself a little more slimmed down, he looked kind of wide in the suit to me, but I did love seeing him and it was great. And I think he did the accent, the parts. It took a little bit getting used to, but I enjoyed it. So those are big fan favorite parts of the movies we want to get to. So segue through the MCU right now, and then stop at the big two that are buzzing right now with Blade and Gambit. So lead up all of that. Take the first half of the show to kind of see where we're at with that.
All right, man. So we're talking about, Iron Man with the Dr. Doom thing. That's something that has been talked about for a while because originally he was supposed to be King. That's what people were saying, that Tony Stark was supposed to be King the Conqueror. Right. They ended up going with Dr. Doom. We talked about last time, if it's for an alternate story, alternate dimension kind of thing, okay. If he is the Dr. Doom, as in he's fighting Reed Richards, Johnny Storm, Sue Storm, and Benjamin J. Grimm, I would not do that one. I think you need somebody different for that. In an alternate universe, you could tell that story. And the regular universe 616, no thing. I would not like to see that. If they did it, they're going to do it regardless of what I think. But if they're smart, they would have someone else take that part and have Robert Downey just do that side. I think would be the best move to go ahead and do it that way.
There's definitely multiverse thing going on. You're saying that's a fact.
Yeah. If they're doing something like that, alternate dimension multiverse, sure. But as a permanent, this is the Dr. Doom from Latveria. the imposing, angry, hates Reed Richards, loves to be the center of attention, Dr. Doom. I don't see Robert Downey doing that. And it's not that he can't, it's just the fact that we already know him as Iron Man. And it wouldn't make sense. Like, it would have to be something alternate reality to make it go that way. So that's where I sit on that. What's your second question, buddy?
Well, I just want to tap into that before the next one. I think it loses something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm such a fan of Iron Man and the legacy he left from beginning to end. I mean, look at how Iron Man came on the scene in 2008 and was so slept on.
Yeah.
Robert Downey's journey, like, why tarnish that, bringing him back to save something instead of that new lifeblood, that new energy? You know what I mean? I think his name is Cillian, the guy from Oppenheimer.
Oh, Cillian Murphy?
Yeah, I was kind of hoping for a fresh face, because I think Robert Downey will do a good job, but I can't unsee Iron Man. And I'm always going to want the red and gold. You know what I mean? And it all depends how they do it. I don't want to roll it out, but it all depends how they do it. So yeah. I'm saying I'm about 50-50 with the Robert Downey thing. Now, Captain America, I know you talked about it missing something, not having Steve Rogers.
Correct.
So I think this movie, Captain America, let's go into the Captain America, Thunderbolts, and then we'll do the Gambit Blade thing. How do you feel? I feel like Captain America is a segue into the Thunderbolts. The Thunderbolts is like the Marvel launching of the Suicide Squad to me.
Let me point something out. I don't know if you know this, but somebody did like a little like comedy spoof video where they have Anthony Mackie like this.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you have Chris Evans there, and then you have Sebastian Stan there.
Right.
Do you think that they're hinting that Chris Evans is coming back as Captain America, and that
is it a different movie?
Will be there too?
Do you think it's a different movie with the Winter Soldier and Steve Rogers in it?
I think they're hinting, if not this movie, but that he's coming. I just don't think they randomly have him with Sebastian and with Anthony Mackie together. All three of them standing there. So I'm kind of like, where are they going with this? Because it seems like they're trying to say that there's much more to the story, to the picture than what we think. And I think that's their little subtle hint. And if so, I'm not opposed to that. Chris Evans is awesome, as Captain America. So I'm like, yeah, bring him back. Make Sam back is Falcon, which is his best piece. Back as Winter Soldier.
I think the cameo was the test.
Mm-hmm.
The Fantastic Four, because they played it off like he was Cap the whole time.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? He actually blamed on, you thought it was Cap coming back. So I think the whole, Blade thing, Gambit, the whole Deadpool, Wolverine cameo in the Void, right? That's the name of the spot, the Void, where everything is dumped in the multiverse.
Yeah.
Those cameos don't really matter because they can go in and out of the canon how they want, and that's basically the dumpster. So whatever they do there, they can say, oh, well, that wasn't canon, or that's a different timeline, or that's, you know what I mean? That's the wasteland, that's the void. That doesn't matter. So to me, off screen, all the different cameos was to kind of gauge who the fans wanted to see.
It's a good way to put it.
This Captain America movie is the same kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? There's been enough time now where we haven't had a big MCU movie. So I feel like Deadpool and Wolverine was a little bit of adhesive applying and a Band-Aid and seeing what would stick with the fandom and seeing where we're at. So like we said, Captain America, New World Order is the same thing. I think they're using the cameo with Steve Rogers and Winter Soldier to kind of see where they got those two have to make their return on that side of the franchise, because now they got Downey coming back. I think they're going to double down with some kind of Evans return. And I think the Deadpool thing was just a teaser of that. But they gave us, they rather waste the Fantastic Four Johnny Storm cameo than the Cap cameo. When he comes back as Cap, that's going to be a whole different epic ensemble they put together.
Well, remember, they had talked about when they were having problems at Marvel, that they wanted to talk about Robert Downey, and Evans coming back, like bringing back that flow of the classic Avengers. So they had been talking about this for a minute when, the other movies had flopped and it wasn't working. And then out comes Fantastic Four and involvement of the X-Men in some way. And then, Robert Downey come, you see what I'm saying? And Blade and all this, like they're trying to get back to a certain point that they know they could be successful. Because if you get Wesley back as Blade, it's going to be gold. Forget anybody they try to put in that spot. We want a younger guy. Doesn't matter. Wesley is Blade, and he can still sell it and do it and be it 100%. I'm telling you.
On top of that, it's becoming the what's old is becoming new again, and that's right. It's what's wanted because they want Toby back for Spider-Man 4. They want Andrew back too. So even all the Spider-Mans are getting these gigs back together. So before I send you to the next segment about Gambit, Wolverine, and all that stuff, Laura, where are you at with the MCU? As someone who's not too familiar with all of that, how much where can we tap you in as far as the cinematic universe, the Captain America trilogy, Iron Man? When we say these type of things, you know what I mean? Where are you at with it, with the comic book culture movies?
I believe I've seen Captain America, but many. I remember the game. I think we had a game. There was a game way back in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
It was Captain America, and I forget who else, but I really liked that game.
Is it a fighting game?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. My memory is not serving me very well right now, but
probably Marvel vs. Capcom,
maybe, yeah. And I remember that was really really entertaining, and I haven't seen Captain America yet, and so I just by listening to you guys, I'm learning so much, and that's why I enjoy being on here, because I'm just learning a lot, and so I enjoy listening, and so I think we're all learning together.
Yeah, we're gonna get you. I'm gonna get you my Disney Plus so we can catch you.
So
start doing reviews and stuff like that. You can get caught up on some of the main trilogies in the timeline.
Yeah, I mean, again, I enjoy hearing you guys talk about it because I'm learning a lot. So I appreciate just being here.
All right, well, let's cook, Drew, because I really look at you and I as modern day Russo brothers. So, let's cook, man. Now we're talking about Blade, right? Let's Blade into Gambit. Blade is getting a lot of hype right now because of where the MCU is at, right? And who's back to put it on. And Deadpool perfectly segued Blade the opportunity to step in. And a lot of so-called old actors, I mean, their 60s. It's 60s, the new 50, the new 40, because a lot of these guys are coming back in their roles and they're reinvigorating the franchises and pouring gasoline back on the fire. So these guys only got maybe a handful of movies left in them to reset, right? The timeline, replenish everything. So give us, if we do get a Channing Tatum Gambit saga movie trilogy, give us all the breakdown, right? Give us the X-Men building, right? How that, because I feel like the MCU, I'm setting you up, buddy. They cannot mess up X-Men. I'm seeing Millie Bobby Brown in some AI casting. I'm seeing a lot of different castings all around. Beast, Cable, Method Man as Bishop. A lot of people talking about the X-Men. So Blade is the perfect way to not only segue into some darker MCU with the Midnight Suns, but also Daredevil, the Defenders. And then now the X-Men has to become Ghost Rider. The X-Men has to become what the Infinity Saga was. So how do we get there? How do they get to their glory with the characters they got cooking? What's going on? And what has to happen with Gambit, bro?
Okay, we're getting the Gambit. I'm bringing it. Okay, so on the discussion of bringing Gambit to the silver screen, which we already had, but to bring him even deeper in and really give him something worth seeing, the guys that really fought to put together Deadpool to make this happen, he would need that team or a team like it, that their whole deal before they get started is we are taking the things that make Gambit great, the things that really hold him together, and we are going to town with that. We're not going to let any studio come in our circle of our creativity and evade it, take it, or anything like that. We're not going to have them try to, sidestep and go in at the last minute and rewrite scripts and that sort of thing. And oh, okay, well, we have some control over this. No, you do this Gambit, it's got to be right, because if you do it right, you got something. You mess it up, it's going to be a disaster. And right now, with the irons that are hot, we're talking some good stuff. And this is what I'm going to say. One thing you need to do, Gambit needs to fight the Thieves Assassins Guild story. That needs to be in there. And I don't mean the stuff they did in 2000. I mean the stuff they did in the 90s. Like that group. I want to see that. I want to see some
book run.
Yeah.
Comic run. I mean, I'm familiar with this first
right here. It's a
okay.
4-part series. So
Nice.
it's the first Gambit series. This is the first Gambit series, the mini series, like 4 parts. Okay. It came out 93. This is what
I don't have that series.
Well, because see, I'm crazy about Gambit, so I got all this stuff.
Man out here with
that. This is where you want it. Also interactions with Sabretooth, which is very important to Gambit. Of course, we need the rogue romance and interaction in there with it, to tell that story. And a big one, we need Hugh Jackman, because if you read your comics, Wolverine and Gambit tag teamed a lot, and they were fantastic together. As a matter of fact, you may or may not know this, but are you familiar with the Marvel versus DC comic series they did in the 90s?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know about Gambit and Wolverine's involvement?
I forget.
Okay. So when Batman was occupied, Gambit and Wolverine stole the Batmobile together. So see, they were always doing stuff together. Yeah. So they were always working together, and they worked so well together. As a matter of fact, they leveled about a section of Japan, and they went back to Japan. Gambit was helping Wolverine do some stuff. And when the government found out that they were there, they said, we're allowing you to go here, but you have to not go over here. And we want you to leave our country as soon as you can, because last time you were here, you leveled Japan, and the Japanese government has not forgiven you yet. Those are the kind of adventures I want to see. So we got to have Wolverine in some of this and have him involved with Gambit.
Are you predicting a team-up movie like we had in Deadpool Wolverine? Are they going to now take Hugh Jackman's, what is it, 61005? What universe was he from in this movie? I forget.
I can't remember what universe he was. I think it was the 605, because it wasn't the 616.
No, I think it was 6105 or something. I could be wrong. Don't quote me, but I think this version of Wolverine in the yellow is going to be their excuse for team-up movies. I would think Marvel announced that this Deadpool movie is a 1 of 3. Mm-hmm. It's not actually Deadpool 4. It's not. Deadpool 1 and 2 is separate from Deadpool and Wolverine, because it's considered a team-up movie. So I heard there's a rumor that Deadpool 3 may be something completely different. And now basically everyone that was in Deadpool and Wolverine is on the table again. So obviously Blade and Gambit, and then Elektra, depending on where the Daredevil thing goes. I'm not sure if her and Ben Affleck. I know Ben Affleck was on set, but it was more for Gardner and supporting her. But I heard he was on set, which is why there was Daredevil rumors.
Yeah.
But with that being said, the biggest future is Blade and Gambit. So
yeah,
Blade can basically, Wesley, if you can get another 3 movies out of Wesley, which I think you can.
Oh yeah.
You got to bring in you got to bring in Ghost Rider, Midnight Suns. You got to give us Midnight Suns. You got to give us that spiritual dark element to the MCU.
Morbius,
you know what I mean? Did a little bit more darker Punisher.
Oh yeah.
Doctor Strange,
Oh, yeah.
you know, get a little what is it, Benedict Cumbersnatch or whatever his name is, or
Cumberbatch.
yeah, you know, he get a little bit of that going in there. Some Midnight Suns can do some damage. So not only the Thunderbolts is cool, but Regan's prediction, I'd love to see Marvel head the Midnight Suns route.
Moon Knight.
Ryan Gosling, Moon Knight as well is already set up. Ryan Gosling, I heard, is Ghost Rider.
Whoa, that's Ryan Gosling? Him?
Yeah, I'm hearing
Norman Reedus.
I'm hearing Ryan Gosling. I'm hearing possible Nick Cage reprisals. There's a bunch of Ghost Rider movies. Okay. And who's the Spanish Ghost Rider?
Oh, Jamie Reyes, Jaime Reyes.
Yes. So they might go that way too. I'm not sure. But Ghost Rider has to happen. Midnight Suns. I love Johnny Berthal as Pun. I think that's a great cast. I like the guys Daredevil. And we need more Moon Knight. So I'm pushing for Moon Knight Suns. As much as I love X-Men, we still got the Sony X-Men stuff. So I love to get it done right, but I wouldn't mind getting Midnight Suns on the side while we're getting X-Men. Because while we're getting Wolverine in his awesomeness, you put him in the black and silver and he can kind of play. You can get double the money with Wolverine. Wolverine can make money like Spider-Man, I think, for Marvel in the next
couple. Oh, for sure. I grew up in the heyday of Wolverine.
And I think Hugh and Wesley got another couple good years and a couple good movies in them with a good stunt team. They could really reset and put a side of Marvel back on the map and give us a whole underground saga again, like Infinity War. So
yeah. Can I add Rican? Because I also need we need another character, I feel. One of the glorious things about when the X-Men would get together, especially in X-Men #1, also known as X-Men Genesis, when Jim Lee came in with Chris Claremont, when they in that first issue, they have the X-Men actually attack. Let me see if I can get my good book here. They have the X-Men actually attack the mansion to test the defenses of if the mansion can stop certain things. They just, and it was an exercise to basically the winner to win. You had to get to Professor X and actually tag him. And that's who won. But it was like you had to deal with all the defenses in the mansion. So you had X-Men Blue and Gold, top level, everyone attacking, trying to get there, in different teams. And what I'm saying is what happens is the team that actually wins and does the best is the team of Wolverine, Gambit, and Psylocke.
Yes.
So you need Psylocke.
I love Psylocke.
Yeah, you need Psylocke, as part of that team.
She would be a great femme fatale to have in a Gambit movie. If you make Psylocke pop up somewhere, I know the fanboys love them some Psylocke. So
let's see. There's the cover right there when they broke in. And they said they snuck past our defenses undetected. We couldn't even find them. And they worked so well together because Gambit was a distraction, was his part. So he distracted one end. Psylocke worked her powers to basically, take over the mind for a second where everybody wasn't paying attention. And before you knew it, Wolverine busted through the floor and tagged Professor X.
Yeah.
So that was the thing about it. So it was like, you need her too. And
speaking of Psylocke, did you like Olivia Munn as Psylocke?
I liked her as the character. She was just in the wrong movie. I felt that her outfit, the way she carried herself, I was like, okay, this could work, but she's just in the wrong movie.
Yeah.
So they could have her come back to do that part. I wouldn't be opposed to her playing, Psylocke.
I used to love her on Attack of the Show. Super G4 crush. So that was great to see her like that. So that's a good point. Psylocke in a Gambit movie would definitely help me go out to the theater to see that. You know what I mean?
And you know what? They need to also, because it can't just be one movie. They've got to do a couple. And I'm saying Omega Red needs to make an appearance too. Omega Red is a classic Jim Lee character, and Wolverine has history with him. And whenever Omega Red showed up, the comic books were always extra hot with that.
Yeah.
the original Russian Weapon X project. You know?
Yeah, we're over the Sabretooth thing, I think.
Well, we need Sabretooth. We do need Sabretooth because Sabretooth, the history with Omega Red and Sabretooth is huge. You know that history at all?
I know there's a lot of books with them on it and in it together.
Yeah, because they were on that Team X with Wolverine and Silver Fox and Maverick, and Sabretooth was there. And part of the there's this thing called the carbon C synthesizer. And basically it can help to control Omega Red's powers within himself better. So he could turn on and off his death factor. And without it, he had to depend on the life force of humans or whatever he could get to get life force out of to survive. So he was dependent on certain things. But once he gets the C synthesizer, he can just run things himself. So Maverick hit that, and Sabretooth was on that mission where they were trying to, and they ran into Omega Red, and they kind of fought it out with him and then got out of there. And so he has this grudge against, Wolverine, of course, and Sabretooth since he was there. So it's like you need Sabretooth there. Plus, come on, we got to have Liv Schreiber show up as Sabretooth in the traditional suit. How awesome would that be? Because Liv Schreiber looked like Victor Creed. All they had to do was put him in the suit. So if you bring him, that would instantly get fans over. In the classic suit, Omega Red in the classic suit. Yeah, we're talking some good times.
So you think that basically we need to get back to cameo building, right? Screen with a credit scene building, all that stuff that made the MCU saga so great, the Infinity Saga so great. Yeah, it has to go back to that. So you're talking like 10-year plan, well thought out movies, canon. Guest appearances, you know what I'm saying? After credit scene, they got to go back to formula, but it's got to be right. They had a Thanos level threat. We need another Thanos level threat, basically.
Oh, for sure.
Excuse me. Mr. Sinister is kind of where the cartoon went. You know what I'm saying, Mr. Sinister?
Absolutely. And see, Gambit has a history with Mr. Sinister.
Yeah.
So you can easily.
I think he's important. I think you're right. I think if Gambit is not done right, it's a disservice, and it's an L in the franchise. He's too much of a main character to screw up. So now that they got some momentum with Channing, you think he can pull off another couple movies as Gambit?
I was leery on him because originally I wanted Clint Eastwood's son, Scott Eastwood. I wanted Scott.
I think he would look better in the suit, to be honest. He's a little
Scott Eastwood. Yeah, Scott Eastwood has it down, but I was really impressed with Channing Tatum. I really was. He really impressed me, and I was like, you know what, this can really work out. A lot better than what I thought. And so
it's a little too late, but it still looked great. It's still better late than never. Let's see that.
It's gonna work, man. I'm telling you, they got to pull this off. So when do I get into actual Gambit?
Yeah, go ahead. I mean, why is it so important? You know what I mean?
Okay, here we go. So let's go back.
This is interesting to hear all of this.
He's a very big character in the X-Men.
Yeah. Let's go back to a very young Drew in the late 1980s. So I had just discovered the X-Men through my older brother. My older brother was reading X-Men at the time. And he was talking to me about some things, and he showed me the X-Men. And then at that time, because I am that old, they on Channel 5, KTLA, back in California, they had the original RoboCop cartoon. Okay. And the last episode, they actually had taken the money for the last episode of RoboCop, and they made an X-Men episode 1. They did one to figure out if they could pitch it, but it was different. It was called Pride of the X-Men. And it was really based on the 70s team. So, you had Wolverine, Colossus, Nightcrawler, Storm, Professor X was there, Kitty Pryde, and for some reason they put Dazzler instead of Jean Grey. But hey, whatever. They stuck her there. And it was one shot, one episode deal. And I thought it was cool, because I was just getting familiar with the characters, but it wasn't enough to pitch off, a show because it just didn't hit. You know, I felt as if they gave it more episodes, kind of rated it a little different, you know, had some merchandise. Maybe they could have gotten it off, but they didn't. And then you only got that one episode. So I was always looking for another episode. Like, oh, because as a kid, you know, you think like there's one episode, there's got to be more to the show, right? Because you don't understand that. But as an adult, you find out, well, they only had enough to do one episode, and that's all you got. So I was kind of bummed out about that. And I was reading some of the early Claremont era stuff. That's really where I was sitting. The Phoenix Saga, God Loves, Man Kills, Days of Future Past, Days of Future Present. I was going through everything and loving it. And then in what happened was in 1990, in X-Men Annual number 14, they introduced this character known as Gambit. And he was kind of briefly in it. You see him for a little bit, okay, and you're like, okay. But then it wasn't until you got this cover, which is the legendary 244, which is considered to be the
first appearance. Yeah, that's a homage.
The first appearance. So 265, correction. I'm getting old. 265 and 267 was the actual introduction into Gambit. And this is when we really got into his character. And he actually befriended Storm. He actually helped out Storm. And then Storm convinced him to join the X-Men. So he comes into the X-Men. And Wolverine was my favorite before Gambit, you know. And then once Gambit was created and I had seen him, I said, I think he's got the top spot now. Mm-hmm. And it was because, you know, he had the complete package. He kind of looked like Jean-Claude Van Damme. Mm-hmm. Which at the time Van Damme was hot, so he was the big guy, you know, in the action scene coming up. So you had that. You had he was like the perfect height that you wanted to be as a young guy. Everybody wanted to be 6'1", 6'2", or taller. So he was right there at that 6'1", 6'2" level. You know, he had awesome fighting skills. He used a bow staff, an assassin bow staff that you could put together and hide your jacket, and then you could hit the button and pull out. So that was the automatic sell. He could take just about any object that he got his hands on and charge it up and turn into an explosive weapon, which was the coolest thing I had ever seen. Blew me away.
Yeah.
Cool, you know, look cool, dress cool, talk cool. The ladies loved him. He had a little bit of a James Bond thing going. So he was everything you wanted to be in a character. And he had a devil-may-care attitude. Totally, you know, total sarcastic, you know, no matter what was going on. I remember in the animated series when they were fighting the Acolytes and they were trying to get to the shuttle to get off the shuttle because the Acolytes had kind of betrayed Magneto. Well, at least one of them did and tricked the others into it. And they were trying to get off the shuttle. And Gambit said, you know what, I'll hold them off. You guys get to the shuttle. And they said, well, what are you going to do? You know, if we got to take off, he said, well, then Gambit will be the first X-Men in orbit. And that was his attitude, was just like, well, hey, if it goes bad, I guess I'll be in space, you know, and I'll be the first X-Men in space. And that's how his attitude was. He always had something to say. It was always witty, but it was always the truth. You know, he might be a joke, but it was the truth. And that's what I loved about his character. So, you know, once I got into his character, I said, when are we getting an action figure? And then 92-93 hit Halloween. We got the X-Men cartoon we all know. But it was only the one episode because ACOM had not prepared the rest of the season. So you only got that one episode. So the show ended with Storm getting ready to open the door, and you have all the soldiers pointing the guns. Show stopped. And you had to wait almost a year to get the other episodes. So I was like, oh, man, where's the rest of the show? When's the merchandise happening? And the Gambit figure didn't come out in the first wave. He actually came out like second or third wave. And I remember being at Walmart and going crazy when I saw the first Gambit figure. And, you know, put the cartoon together. The season's now going the way it should. Just took a while. You got your Gambit figure. You got your Wolverine. You know, you're sitting in front of your TV and you're ready to get into the X-Men. And, you go down to the local comic shop, you know, pick up your comics to follow the story that's going on with them. Gambit was a huge sensation. Everybody saw him on the cartoon. He immediately caught everybody's attention. You know, Wolverine and Gambit were really the centerfold of that show. You know, a lot of the girls like Rogue, of course, Rogue was real popular with the girls. The guys liked her too. Some people like Cyclops. He's okay, but he was not my top pick. I liked his brother better, Havoc. Havoc was a cool character.
It was almost like there was an X-Men for every personality.
Yeah.
But I think Wolverine and Gambit had the personalities that every man, even if they didn't have it, they wanted. Either one.
That's why I've got a 5 o'clock shadow to this day. You know, because of Gambit and Wolverine, because that was cool. I dreamed of having a 5 o'clock shadow, smoking a cigarette or a cigar, because Wolverine smoked the cigars, Gambit smoked the cigarettes, you know, dressing cool with the trench coat or a biker jacket, you know, cruising on a Harley, you know, looking cool, you know, like all the ladies notice you, you know, like it was every guy's dream. It was like
power for me was it. I like this power, like the ability to control kinetic energy was so different, but then the way he used it. And then I was a bow staff guy from Donatello in the Turtles. So I'm seeing him charge the bow, hit people with the bow. They go flying, they throwing the cards like ninja stars. Like Gambit was a James Bond ninja, pretty much to me. He was like a cool ninja without the suit. That's why I've always liked it. And he had the swag with the ladies too. So I agree. A lot of it was his pizzazz, his charisma as a character. And the no nonsense that him and Wolverine had together. It was like the boys together, you know?
Yeah, because Wolverine would always take him on every road trip at that time that he went on when he went to Japan. And he took Wolverine took him with him, and he was wearing the brown suit, the Yoshida clan, you know, the Yoshida clan color suit. If you know comics, you know the Yoshida clan, you know, and you know that that's where the brown suit came from, was from Japan. And it got messed up. And so he sees Mariko Yoshida, and that's when unfortunately they kill her. But one thing that she gives Logan is the yellow suit, and we had not seen the yellow suit in a while. And he comes out wearing the yellow suit, and everybody's screaming and yelling when they see that yellow suit come out with the tiger stripes on, and he's just leveling Japan left and right with Gambit and Jubilee. You know, that was the thing. So a lot of the biggest moments of X-Men history came of that run of Claremont and Jim Lee when Gambit was there. Those were the big ones, because, you know, you had the stuff, of course, from the 70s and the 80s, but then it was kind of dying down, you know? And then all of a sudden you get Jim Lee in the seat. They're kind of coming up with some different things that they're going to revamp. And that's how you end up with X-Men 1 Genesis, you know, the one that has the most sells of all time.
Yeah.
Still have been matched to this day.
So is that when Psylocke was the first edition during that run? Gambit, Psylocke, they all came in the 90s, right?
They were Psylocke was actually established before, but the look that that we all know, the look of Gambit that we all know, that happened with X-Men Annual, you know, the number 1, you know, the Genesis. Right. That's when that really kicked off. Like, this is Gambit, this is Psylocke, because they were around before, but that book right there put them on a map. Like, you know, people started, that's how they sold, you know, the many copies as they did. I'm trying to remember the exact number. They sold, hold on, boys and girls. Let me get
it was 8 million, I thought.
I think it was 8.5.
8 million. Selling high selling comic book of all time. I think it was 8 million.
Top selling comic book of all time.
X-Men 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, while you look that up, how you feel about the X-Men, Laura? What do you know about the X-Men?
I don't know very much, but I like I've always liked the look of Storm. I always thought she was really pretty. And
you know what her powers are? You familiar with her powers? She's the one that controls weather.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yes. She flies, lightning.
Educate me. Where do they get their powers from?
They're mutants. Their DNA. So their DNA is basically they're mutants. You know, it's not the same. So each mutant, it comes out different powers, different abilities. And X-Men is great because it came out in the time of basically segregation, Drew, in this country. So X-Men came out
2 million. That's what I was thinking. So it is 8.2.
I was
8.2
right.
million.
See, I was right.
Yeah,
So
I
didn't
knew
know
it was.
that.
I was like, is 8.5, 8.2? So I had to get it right just in case. But yeah, it was 8.2 million is what they sold. All right. So to answer your question, okay. So originally in 1963, when they did the first X-Men run, they were just given because the truth is this: Stan Lee said in the original interview, I was lazy and I didn't want to come up with any complex things. So he said, I think people could be born with powers, So that's where he went with the X-Men, as they say retcon now, they went back, or Stan Lee had deeper ideas as it went on. Especially with the Claremont era. People say civil rights, but he really based it a lot on the Holocaust.
Right.
So that's where a lot of that came from. So you have to think if people are born with these abilities due to this X gene that exists inside of them, and then they're coming out with claws and eyes that shoot optic blasts or lasers coming out of their hand, people are going to be kind of scared and be like, oh, they're freaks of nature and we should put them in a box and not have them around. So you had a different type of superhero story because, they fought villains and stuff, but you had really their main struggle was being accepted by society because society didn't want mutants around. I mean, we're talking about humans would find ways how to kill mutants, just
they were demonized.
Yeah, they completely demonized them.
Mm-hmm. I see.
And so from it, them being demonized or killed or tortured or whatever was going on, you also formed villains, mutant villains, because they're just like, well, forget these humans. If they don't care and they just want us to die and be in internment camps, I'm not going to do that. So then you have, Sabretooth and Apocalypse and Magneto. You have these characters that are really impacted by that. Magneto's a little different because he's not exactly an all the way bad guy. Magneto is more of an in-between, depending on the situation kind of thing. That's kind of how he was. But he was also in Auschwitz, in World War II. So he's a survivor of that. So he's familiar with how things can go in a world situation really fast, because none of his family survived, only he did. So he has that he takes with him, and now he's got this mutant fight, and he's not feeling that too much. So Magneto's an interesting character, and so they're in a world where they're trying to do what is right, trying to coexist humans and mutants together in one place, and they're fighting for the rights of that. But of course, they have a lot of people that don't want it. You have the basic humans that are a little skeptical. You have the real prejudiced humans that don't want it. You have the evil mutants that don't want peace at all. They think they should be running things. You have the mutants that hide, that they have powers, but they look like normal humans. So if they can get away working jobs and doing normal stuff without people knowing about their powers, they'll do that. So you have all these different dynamics, that go into the story. And that puts together in one sandwich the whole thing of the X-Men, so you're dealing with different ideas and personalities and colors and everything of the rainbow in an X-Men story. And that's what made the X-Men the biggest, comic book out there, because there was nothing else like it. They dealt with struggle. They dealt with, how it is to be young and to go through something and the challenges of life, and how life isn't always a bowl of cherries, because the X-Men didn't always win. And if they did win, it took a while to get somewhere for them to win. You read a comic book, it might just be the doorway to something else, because they weren't always going to win. The X-Men was like a tragedy, because a lot of times you knew their future when you went into the future and looked at the X-Men. A lot of them were in internment camps and running, for their lives and having to survive, and society really collapsed on them. They made technology like the Sentinels that could, really deal with their powers and take a lot of impact and be smarter than them, and then figure out how mutants work and their powers, and then fight and combat that. So you're dealing with all these stories, but none of it was a sunshiny ending. The stories.
You know what I love about the X-Men, Drew, why you make that point, is that no matter what good they did, they were always the bad guys.
Yeah, that was the truth too. No matter how much they did.
Yeah, it made you understood the struggle they went through. It was like you looked at them like, man, even when they're saving people, they're still looked at like freaks and treated a different type of way from society.
Yeah.
So there was always that kind of perspective that even though they're not accepted from society, we still do what we got to do. You know, we do what's right, even though we're mutants and we're freaks to these people. It's our job and responsibility, kind of like the Spider-Man thing: great power, great responsibility. The X-Men, that's kind of the same creed. Like, even though they hate us, the dynamic of it splitting the whole population of the mutants in half, and you got the Magneto side, the whole civil war within the mutants. There's a lot of great things about the X-Men that keep it going, that I
No,
think
absolutely.
society needs right now. So with that being said, if you want to keep going with Gambit, but I want to get to not only the Gambit movies and how they can lead into other stuff, but also Blade too.
No,
So
absolutely. I was gonna say, that you bring up an interesting thing, but here's the kicker, and it kind of mocks us in society because you've got Captain America and you've got Iron Man and you've got these other heroes, and even in society in the comics, they'll look at them as not the same as mutants, even though they all have powers, right? They all have powers, they all have abilities, they all have something going on, but they'll look at like an Avenger that's not a mutant, but they have powers, like Carol Danvers is Miss Marvel, or is Warbird, whichever name she's using, and they'll go, oh, well, she's okay because she wasn't born a mutant. But this person that has the same powers is born a mutant, so they're not okay, but they're okay. And that's the whole hypocrisy in the X-Men. And the X-Men have said, yeah, Avengers, how come you didn't come help us out with this problem? They're like, well, the government wouldn't let us go down there, and deal with that. Well, why is that? Well, because you guys are mutants and we're not. So there's a red line between them, a lot of the time. And that's what caused X-Men versus Avengers, because they could not see eye to eye with that one. And I know
that would be a great crossover. If they get the X-Men saga right, the mutant saga, they take the next couple years, get that right, and then they bring the Avengers back and do Avengers versus X-Men.
Yeah.
That would be great. I don't know how old all these people will be by the time that happens, but that would be great to see.
Absolutely. No, that's the thing about it, is like there's so much with just X titles in general, because you've got X-Men Blue and Gold, you've got Uncanny X-Men, you've got the basic middle of X-Men, you've got X-Force, you've got X Factor, you've got Generation X, you've got House M, you got Exiles, you've got many things that you can work with all underneath the X-Men and Excalibur. So, the British side of the mutant struggle. So you can bring that in as well and tell an awesome story. But it all will not come together if you don't have that.
Without the raging Cajun.
That's right. So that's the number one thing. So we got to make sure that Gambit is done properly, because you've got Wolverine and you've got Gambit, and they're fiery hot. And right now, you could do a lot of things that could change the future of Marvel movies and animation to a lot of levels right now. Because I saw X-Men 97, and it was like,
it
was like that. There was some moments behind, and there were some moments I was like, okay.
It was nice to see and to have back, but
it wasn't the same. The music wasn't the same. The feel was not the same. And they were promising that this was going to be a pickup right after the original show.
It didn't feel like that for me. It really didn't.
No, there were some missing elements to it. So it made things more challenging and difficult. So I was just like, okay, I guess,
What about you, Laura? Is there anything from back in the day in TV you want to see come back? While we're on the topic of redoing things, is there anything that sticks out in your childhood other than Power Rangers, of course, that you'd like to see get some shine and some light that almost helped you just like Power Rangers did?
VR Troopers?
I never got into VR Troopers, honestly. I think I saw the first few episodes, but after that, I didn't see much of
I
it.
think in this era, that'd be a great reboot, Drew. We'll keep that in the
Oh
cut.
yeah,
Little VR
Um,
trailer
Troopers was
reboot.
awesome.
Yeah. What comes to your mind besides
Yeah.
Power Rangers? If I removed it from your childhood, right, that it would definitely affect how you grew up if it wasn't there. You know what I mean? Is there anything you want to take some time? We'll keep going. Take some time. I want you to answer that question by the time me and Drew finish cooking on Blade.
Yeah. Were you a Ren and Stimpy fan? Were you,
what?
Ren and Stimpy? Did you like
Anything.
Tiny
It could be
Um,
Yeah.
Tom and Jerry. I love
Tom and Jerry. Okay. They did a couple new movies and stuff. Did you watch any of the new stuff?
No, no.
No.
But if
No.
they did a like a maybe a comic strip of Tom and Jerry, I watched I read the funnies in the newspaper, the comic strips.
Mm-hmm.
I really like those since we're on comics. I really like the comics in the newspaper. I'm admittedly kind of boring, you know.
There had to have been a handful of cartoons. Everyone's got their 1, 2, 3 cartoons that they grew up with that were just close to their heart.
Yeah,
Or
Tom.
kids shows.
Yeah, definitely.
Tom and Jerry. That's a good pick. I wasn't expecting that. So,
But I tell you, I am just enjoying you guys. You guys just are
oh, we love this stuff.
knowledgeable about all this. I'm so grateful to be here to listen to this. This is cool.
Yeah. I'm serious.
And
We're gonna get you caught up.
cool to sit back and just let the guys handle this.
Yeah. But it's good though when you sit and you watch and you consume it after you've had our knowledge and heard us talk about it, it'll click different for you.
Yeah, because we want to hear from you.
So now when we come back to it and we start reviewing stuff and getting more involved, you get more and more in tune. You'll start to like the stuff too. It's really good. So, but we'll talk after the show. I'll get you hooked up on Disney Plus. We'll get you some homework. We'll be good, Laura. So,
Okay.
Drew, back to Blade, man. Are you done
Okay.
with the Raging Cajun? We done with Gambit?
No, we can never be done with Gambit. I mean,
I want to get to Blade.
Gambit hype.
Who's got the hype train more? Let's start there. Do we want to see the Gambit movies trilogy first, or do we want Blade to come back? Because I think I'm more excited for Blade, bro. Yeah, people. I mean, only because I want Midnight Suns so bad.
I do too. I do want Midnight Suns. I'm not going to disagree. I want that.
One of my favorite slept-on crews, and he's got Wolvie in it too. All my favorite characters are in the Midnight Sun. Damn, you got it all, huh? Paperbacks too.
I do. I've got more.
Well, as you can see, Drew is our token Gambit specialist, right? So Gambit's one of those X-Men that if you take him off the team or he's not on the team, it loses something for me.
I used to not pick up comic books when the X-Men were running, when Gambit was there. If he wasn't in it, or he wasn't on the cover, I might get it, but a lot of times I was real hesitant to pick it up if he wasn't on it. Like they would do promotionals,
right?
Like Chef Boyardee and different things, and Gambit wasn't on the can. I feel like I was like, oh, there's an X-Men shirt. I was like, is Gambit on it?
Yeah.
It was
there's
kind of
no X-Men without him.
Yeah, and everything that he had on it was the hardest stuff to get, because I remember the X-Men bed sheets.
Right.
They did around that time, the mutant gear bed sheets, and they were reversible. So like on the front, it was like Cyclops, Gambit, Wolverine, and Psylocke. And then you flipped it on the inside, and then it was the gold team. So then you had Jean Grey, Storm, Iceman. Who else was there? Archangel, on the pillowcase, and Bishop. They were on that, so you could reverse it. And I never could get those sheets because they sold out. And even to this day, when people see a pillowcase or a bed sheet or a complete set, top dollar, they sell right out. So I've been trying to get a pillowcase since I was like 9 years old, trying to get this pillowcase. So I'm hoping that I end up with a pillowcase one of these days, because they were all over the place. They used to have a saying, the kids' favorite mutants ain't turtles.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Because X-Men took over. They had the gear, the hood, the hats, the shorts, the pants, the shirts.
Now, that cartoon, when it hit, it was a game changer. That cartoon, these are my culture shifts, right? The Death of Superman was where I started.
Okay.
Ninja Turtles, right, which was 89. Then I think when did we get Rangers? Rangers was 93, right?
93. Yeah.
And after that was the animated series, Spider-Man and Batman.
Well, Batman was first. That was 92.
Okay, so
Batman
then
came out first.
Batman for DC, Rangers, right? This is kind of the timeline I was on. Ghostbusters was in there in the middle.
Well, Ghostbusters was 86. They were 86,
Yeah, Ghostbusters, even the cartoon. I had a little Ghostbuster face, Street Sharks, Thundercats, Transformers. Never really a G.I. Joe guy.
What?
More Thundercats, more Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow. That's the only thing that kind of, I love Snake.
Oh.
And then I kind of ended it with Spider-Man, and then just kind of getting to the MCU and Marvel and all that stuff. So that was my timeline. And those are the things that kind of stick out now for me in the comic shop. It's like, all right, I'm going, as soon as I'm getting in, it's like, you know, X-Men, Avengers, you know, Turtles, Transformers, Rangers. So I have my starting lineup. You know what I mean? My essential starting 9. You know,
right.
Of teams and squads and stuff that I build. So where are you at with like I said, with why do you think Gambit took so long? Number one. And where are you at with is it Taylor Kirch? Why he
Taylor Keach? Play John Carter?
From the Origins movie. So like what do we have to get from Gambit? Because I'm not sure that kid may not have did the part a little better, because he's also a little scruffier than Channing Tatum. So
he didn't. Okay, so here's the thing about Taylor. Taylor was more what I would say the ultimate X-Men edition of Gambit. He was more like
an ultimate, the ultimate comics
ultimate edition Gambit. And so I wasn't feeling as much. I was glad to see Gambit on the screen.
Yeah.
Because I had never seen him in live action. So it was like, oh, okay, there he is. But he was an ultimate edition of Gambit.
With long hair, right?
Yeah, he even had the look, the trench coat and the look of the ultimate X-Men, you know. So I was kind of like, yeah, okay, well, there he is. You know, so because you know, a lot of the stuff they based off of the time, Rican, was, you know, based upon Ultimate X-Men. You know, because originally, I don't know if you know this, the Ultimate, when they did the Ultimate series, the Ultimates was basically a roadmap for a lot of movie studios to look at. It made it more accessible to turn it into a movie. So X-Men, Avengers, they were all based upon that. And that's why at the time, Iron Man, they even had Iron Man comics where they looked like Tom Cruise, because Tom Cruise was supposed to play Tony Stark originally.
Which I heard is happening still.
Hey, who knows?
I think Downey's going to be Doom, and then Superior Iron Man's going to show up as Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise, I wouldn't be surprised, because they really hyped him up. And that's where the Samuel Jackson, Nick Fury came from, was they put him in the Ultimate series to try to kind of, you know, get them go, oh, look at what we're doing, you know, check it out. And then people would, you know, movie contracts would happen. You know, everything that you saw at that time was based upon the Ultimate run.
So that was
the surprise.
The turn of the millennium is where everything started shifting, you know, 01, 02. Blade was around 01, 02, right?
Well, he was before then.
Right? The first Blade was what?
Tomb of Dracula. I think we're looking at 1970.
No, Wesley. The first Wesley.
Oh, Wesley, the movie.
Yeah.
You're looking at 97.
Okay.
97, 98 around there is when they had put out the first Blade.
Yeah.
And they had let's
talk about are you still going with Gambit? Because I'm definitely curious. Like I remember the 80s, the Dolph Lundgren Punisher.
Yes.
I remember that time when Marvel was struggling. when they were playing the Punisher movie late night.
Because what year were you born, buddy? What year were you
85,
born?
85.
Okay, so you were there in 85. Okay, I was born in
I
80.
was about 10, 11, prime age in 95 when all this stuff was dropping from 95 to like 2000.
Okay, I've got 2 years on you. So coming from somebody when that stuff came out, you know, to see it, because I remember when the Dolph Lundgren movie first came out, you know, I was in the theater for a lot of the stuff that you talk about. Like I was there when the hype was big. You know, I remember when RoboCop came out in 1987, and I was in the movie theater at the time. So that's how far back I go, you know. So I was there when Thundercats were still at the height, and, you know, you could still get their stuff at the store, everything like that. When the stuff from the 80s was still white hot, and Transformers and everything. The movie had come out the year before, the animated movie. So I was there when all that was going on. And when Marvel, you know, we had the Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno Incredible Hulk, you know, which one of the many movies had Daredevil and Kingpin for the first time. John Rhys Davies that played Sala and Indiana Jones, also the same guy that played Gimli in Lord of the Rings. He was Kingpin in the original cut. So that we got used to that. And then Thor made an appearance in the Hulk. And that's when we first saw it. And that's when we had the Nicholas Hammond Spider-Man that was walking on sidewalks camera. So that's how we first saw the original Marvel stuff. And then later on, you know, you started to eventually get like the David Hasselhoff, Nick Fury, the Generation X movie that Fox did. You started seeing little, very, very small hints of Marvel coming up, you know, and they kind of did it like, yeah, and then no, and yeah, and then no. A couple years down the road, they would maybe do something or something around. You had Mutant X, you know, that was kind of an offshoot of the X-Men a little bit. They tried to push, you know, a little bit, but not very far, but just a little bit. They did that. And they kind of played with that, you know, a little bit. And when they did Blade at the time, because they had Dolph Lundgren, Punisher. Oh, I forgot. They had the Captain America movie. Oh my gosh, the
old school one
jacked me up because like you had that one, and then you had the original Fantastic Four that never went to theaters. You know, it was all shot and made, but they kind of had it, you know, in a studio in a vault, and a couple of the people had been able to get the negatives and take it, and then it kind of circulated on comic book circuits. So basically at comic book conventions, people started to have copies of it on VHS, you know. And that, you ever see that movie?
Which one?
The original Fantastic Four movie, the one I'm talking about.
No, yeah, I've seen bits and pieces, never since.
Never seen. I own it. I have it on Blu-ray.
Crazy. Well, run a parallel from now in the timeline to where
so that's what I'm doing. Is they were doing stuff like that at the time, because what was going on was when the 89 Batman hit, which I was in theaters for that. When that hit, everybody went superheroes. Let's try to.
Yeah, I remember that a little bit, but it had that Tim Burton quirkiness, so people weren't sold, and they didn't like Keaton as Batman.
Right.
So compared to the superhero fatigue that we have now, compared to what's going on now, is like back then they didn't believe because it wasn't been done before.
Right. Until Batman, because they believed with Christopher Reeves, but they had kind of done that for a while, and then that had run its course. So Christopher Reeves was really the big thing.
The face of superhero movie.
Yeah, really. And he was perfect. So he came out and everybody went, wow. So that was really the big selling point. But that was a while ago, right? They had done 4 of those Christopher Reeves movies. And then in 89, they did Batman, and Batman blew open the doors. And then everybody was trying to do something. They were trying to, you know, then you had the Captain America, then you had the Fantastic Four. They were trying to get somewhere. Marvel, DC, both. DC was trying to do more stuff to try to match Batman, you know, again, or even higher. So everybody was in competition with each other. So every comic book company wanted to do something once that door got open, but they could not match the success of the 89 movie. you know, and the match